Okay, so I think we'll get started. We're at the top of the hour here. So welcome everybody to our webinar for this month, which is giving you 5 simple steps to hosting a successful webinar. So joining me today, as always, is Dave Palmer.
Hi Dermot. Hi everyone.
And we really appreciate you all joining us today. So if I just draw your attention again to the Me2 instructions, we're going to be using Me2 for some interaction during the session. We're going to ask you a couple of questions, and we hope that you will ask us some questions as well. So if you download Me2 from your app store or go to the web app, which is web.me2.io, and then the important bit here is the meeting ID for this session, which is 167831115. And the web app link will be on every slide. So if you don't manage to join it right now, that's fine. You should be able to jump on at any point. Okay, let's have a quick look at today's agenda. Now, we've got 5 points to take you through today, but there are plenty more good elements that people can use and some good advice that we can share with you if you want to get in touch directly afterwards. But over the next 15 or 20 minutes, we're going to be looking at how to consider your audience, to take your tech seriously, some tips on compelling content, our favourite tips about how to engage your audience, and then some ways to measure with the view to improve for future sessions. And then we've got some time at the end for a bit of Q&A.
And I think you hit the nail on the head there by saying our favourite tips. You know, there's more like 55 than 5, yep. So it's our pick of the day. Okay,
I think we'll kick things off with a poll. So just to get a bit of an idea of your experiences with doing online sessions or webinars or online lectures, whatever type of sessions you deliver online. So have you never done one? Have you not done any so far, but you're planning to start doing them? Do you do them rarely, often, or are you a regular, everyday webinar or online session presenter? Okay, I think we've got a few votes in there, so we'll just take that. And this, doesn't just give us the information; it also lets you know a little bit about the other people that are joining you on the session today. So, so quite a few irregular users, but and a lot of people that hopefully after this session will have some tips on getting started and getting started well. Okie doke. So on to our first section, which is consider your audience. So first of all, I guess it's invitations. Now, clearly they've got to be compelling to entice people to, make that effort to join your online session. However, you do need to be honest about the content. You don't want people sitting there waiting to learn or hear about something that's not going to come. It's actually quite fun striking the balance between what the marketing team want to say from our point of view in these invitations and what Dave and I are comfortable delivering. So there's about getting a balance there. This is probably less of an issue for lecturers that are delivering online lectures. However, I imagine you still do want to, make for an attractive invitation. The time of day. So depending on the type of session, your timings, they might be dictated by things that are outside of your control, but they do still need consideration, as it could be the difference between getting your desired number of people signed up or not. We've learned over time running these sessions that about 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. UK time work best for our registration rates for our target market. And then much like the time of day, actually the length of the session is very important. Now, again, this might be out of your control, but always aim to advertise and deliver within a time period that's going to be attractive to people. So, potentially on the shorter side. But you do need to be really realistic about this, with the content you need to deliver and can you fit it into the time. Bear in mind that it is, it's much easier for people to actually tune out due to distractions that they have when they're sitting at their desk or in their bedroom, or they might even turn off. On sessions that are online, people can do that very easily. People are also less likely, I think, to sign up for sessions that, potentially overly long. The first few webinars that we did, we were pitching them in at, taking an hour. But then actually we found when we reduced that down to half an hour and now 20 minutes, we seem to have found a sweet spot between delivering the content that we want to deliver and actually getting a good number of people to sign up for it. Then we look at the level of content. So, again, really important to consider this. Don't be tempted to try, a catch-all type of thing. You want to pitch the content at the right level to be relevant to that precise group of people that you're aiming at.
And then it's over to me. So I'm taking point 2, and that is to take technology seriously. And as Dermot said, we could deliver loads of points here. These are just some of our picks. The first one is the platform that you use to deliver your webinars. Now, as you'd have seen, because you've joined this one, we use GoToWebinar. It suits us, it suits our needs, but think about what you need from your platform. We share screens, we broadcast the audio, we record them. We don't hand out files. We use Me Too for polling. So, we found one that works for us. Some of these are free, some of them are cost incurred. So look into the best platform that suits your needs. The 6 Ps. Now, they differ sometimes. Prior preparation prevents pretty poor performance. So this is all really about, preparing prior to your webinar. I mean, Dermot and I will always sit down, days before, the morning before, talk about the content, talk about what we want to achieve, have other meetings where we run through and build the slides. But from a technology point of view, practice, rehearse. This is a snapshot of the Me Too team earlier today, helping me and Dermot in our rehearsal. But, take the technology seriously. That's what rehearsals are for. They're not just for presenters knowing their content. You will highlight and kind of find any surprises. You'll be comfortable with the technology. You'll find out if anything's not working. And as Dermot kind of alluded to with timings, it'll give you a chance to adjust timings. So use that technology, have a full dress rehearsal. Take audio seriously. Now this one's close to my heart. I do a lot of work in video, but looking at the people there, who's having the most enhanced learning experience, it should be clear, and audio is so important. If anyone who can sit for an hour and listen to crackly audio, they're not learning anything, quite frankly. We know that most of these webinars, our attendees are sat in front of a computer screen with their headphones on. It's not such an issue for a short webinar, but it's relatively cheap, really simple. These things plug into your computer, and if you're not using something like this, go out and spend 20 to 50 to £100, and you'll drastically increase your audio quality and what people learn from that. Now, I used to call this the bus effect. It used to be like what would happen if I got hit by a bus, but a little less grim. But with technology, think about the what if scenario. What if I left my laptop on the bus? What if I spilt my cup of tea over the speakers? Think about the backup scenario and have technology in place to cope with that. Have you provided electronic notes for colleagues in case you do miss that bus? Has Dermot shared his presentation files with me in case he gets the wrong bus? So you can see where I'm going with the bus here. And introduce a co-host or a co-organizer to take away some of that burden of technology. I press the buttons to advance the slides and he reads through them. It kind of works well often for us. And almost there on this point, but checklists. And we'll come back to checklists, but they are so important and will make the technology side of webinars so much easier. Ranging from turn it on, log in, check that your phone's plugged in, check that there's charge. I mean, we take checklists to another level. We ensure we've been to the toilet and even got a cup of tea ready. But have a good checklist. You can refine it over time, and it will really help on the technology. My final point... That was my final point. I'm thinking of another step. Sorry, Dermot, over to you for number 3.
There could be a bonus one there. So when we talk about compelling content, your content is your content. I'm not going to tell you, what you should be presenting. But there's just a couple of tips here in terms of, how you prepare it and how you deliver it. So we'd always advise you to set your expectations with a clear agenda. And this isn't just to let participants know what's going on, but also to keep you on track. Now, Dave and I, when we first started doing these webinars, a year ago, we were terrible at going off on tangents when delivering these web sessions.
That's me. Yeah,
I think mainly. But we've actually learned that by putting an agenda in place, we now stick to it quite rigidly, which is always good, and that helps us get out on time. We always like to leave a little bit of time at the end for Q&A, or even just a free section at the end to explore anything that comes up during the session, questions that people put in or discussion points. Now, this will probably seem like quite an obvious one, but knowing your subject matter is even more important when delivering online content. You don't have that same luxury at striking up the level of rapport with attendees as you do when you're face-to-face. So, winging it really isn't an option. I'd always advise you to go for big and bold slides, even more so than usual. I know it's a rule of presentations, but when sharing your screen over the internet like we are now, you're almost certainly going to lose some picture quality. So even if you've got the quickest fibre in the world on your computer, it's really unlikely that your attendees are going to as well. So your content should be really easily digestible. Keep your imagery, bold and fun and exciting. Not too much crucial detail. If you've got what would be considered, a busy slide normally, cut it in half and spread it over multiple slides. But above all, keep your content punchy and really interesting. Remember that your audience isn't captive like they are in a face-to-face. When we come to timekeeping, so we've already touched on this a little bit, but quite simply, start on time and end on time. People tend to, sign up for these online sessions and be able to squeeze it into their schedule. So if you break that timekeeping trust, you could be in danger of actually losing some repeat attendees. Like I said, include that time for Q&A. Don't just take it on to the end of your session necessarily. If there are other appropriate times throughout the session, then do factor that in. If you're a massively changing topic or something like that, it might be a good idea to actually have a Q&A session between those. If you do leave it to the end like we do, like I say, make sure that you include it in your timings, otherwise you're at risk of overrunning. Something that happened to us on a few of our early webinars is that we ran our content right up to the end, started a Q&A, and we lost, I think, over half of our audience on the first one, which wasn't ideal.
Well, and to take one question out of the Q&A for later, yes, this is all being recorded and will be shared afterwards, so keep the questions coming. We've got some to deal with later. Right, number 4, engage the audience. Now, before we start, if I could open that poll, what's the best way to engage with an audience? So if I could ask you just to select your best way, or what you think is the best way to engage with an audience. Now, there's no prizes here, so we'll just give that a few more seconds. A few more responses.
I might use props, Dave. We don't.
Yeah, we're going to bring in the inflatable banana today, but maybe next time. Okay, let's close that poll. Right. Well, really, that's promising and good to see. There's no correct answer. They're all valid ways of engaging with the audience. But what we've just done there by asking this poll is we've got your opinion. Yeah. So, a really important way of engaging is getting people involved. Yeah, I think certainly, like Dave says, all of these are appropriate. Some of them maybe aren't possible or appropriate for online sessions. No. I mean, my storytelling starts at 11:30 for anyone who wants to join later. A few just basic tips. I mean, for the presenter, for the host, be warm and friendly, be personable. Tell a little bit about yourself at the start or introduce your colleagues. Don't be controversial. Respect that you don't always know who's attending. There might be public webinars. You don't know their backgrounds. Speak clearly and not too fast. We're probably talking a bit too quick on this one because we've got loads of compelling content. But again, think about your audience. They may not all use English as their first language. And then pause for thought. Give people a moment to just let something sink in, allow thinking time. Got that?
I've got it, Dave.
Another option, don't go it alone. What's better than listening to me for half an hour is listening to me and Dermot for half an hour. It's going to be more engaging. So, use a co-host if you can and be human. If you and ah or make a mistake, again, like I did, so you can see now that mistake with the slide was to make this point, be human, mistakes happen, and and ah, it's a lot more engaging for people than kind of robotic feel that you're reading off a piece of paper. The dreaded webcam. Now, we've got the webcam. We've introduced this at our last few webinars, but the feedback we had was that they were so much more engaging to see what's going on. Anyone who's had a Jumpstart webinar recently, they get the full-on me saying hello for a few minutes. But, to see a face, as you can see from these examples, it's just a lot more engaging for the attendee to see what's going on. And then when you really get the confidence up, bring in that full-on webcam. Now, the attention curve or the engagement curve, or knowledge retention curve, you start, people are interested, but over time they gradually lose a bit of interest, and then maybe we're here, sorry, Dermot, I start talking and they get a bit more interested. But, that's kind of typical for most, whether it's a 20-minute webinar or a, one-day conference. Try and interrupt that pattern. people are more engaged, more attentive, or will retain more knowledge if you can interrupt that pattern. It's a natural thing, it happens, so interrupt it with props, polls, and I say here polls, live polling, just one of the best, simplest ways to get people engaged, as we said before, get their opinion. And then it's over to you for point number 5.
Thank you, Dave. So, measure and improve, something that's very close to my heart. That again, I mentioned it earlier, but the ability to get a feel for how it went after, an online lecture or training session or a presentation, it's much harder than it is in a face-to-face for those reasons that we mentioned earlier. So things like evaluation polls are a great way to instantly get that feedback, and even in an anonymous way, if appropriate. But in order to measure success, we analyse stats such as, how many participants are responding to those polling questions against how many people have actually connected to, Me Too in this instance. And then we like to cross-reference that against things like how many people have registered and then how many people actually attended the session. And also, as Dave explained earlier, that there are a number of reasons why we use GoToWebinar for our sessions, but actually their interest or engagement score that gets calculated as part of their post-webinar report is extremely useful to us in assessing the success of our sessions. So it doesn't paint a complete picture by itself, but combined with things like evaluation polls, qualitative feedback that we get either through a discussion board or afterwards, and then just a general participation, we've got some really important and crucially measurable metrics that we judge ourselves on. You should always be looking for ways to improve the sessions and all of those elements, and that will likely be different for everybody depending on your session. But one thing that we learned early on is to put that Me Too ID down at the bottom of each slide, and that will catch any latecomers or even people that didn't feel that they wanted to participate at the beginning, but once they see that other people are getting involved, they then might want to join in. So they've always got that option. We analysed all our registration and attendance stats over the early sessions that we ran to find out those best days and times to host the sessions. So we avoid at all costs doing on a Monday or a Friday, and then we kind of found at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. Here in the UK, and how that translates abroad works quite well. Now, one of our main KPIs for online sessions is actually improving our registered versus attended ratio. But we also then have to take into account that people register for these sessions in order to get the recording. So what we then do afterwards is we track the click-throughs on our YouTube channel, where Dave will post a video of this afterwards, and we bring all of that together and look at it a bit more holistically. Quickly jumping back to evaluation data, one thing I would advise in relation to all of this is to ask for brutally honest feedback. People can quite often be generous, perhaps, when they're responding to these polls because they don't want to offend anybody. But really try and encourage true responses so that you can really improve these sessions. So, and I think that's what we're going to do shortly. You thought so, but we've got a surprise. It's a bonus step. So here it is, folks. Number 6, and Dermot's kind of really touched upon it, but the webinar doesn't end when you stop talking and say goodbye. Follow up, distribute the content. Now, whether it's for, the likes of Dave Marples, we make these recordings to share afterwards for anyone who's feeling under the weather, or even to share it for a rainy day. Now, we have a rule here at Me Too, something about using content 3 ways. Yeah, absolutely. So, that is a rule that we absolutely live to. So once we create any resource, not just a webinar, we like to share it then either 3 different channels or in 3 ways. So that might be just the YouTube channel. We post things on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or we put them on our mailing. So, it could be part of an email list that goes out, or indeed some of our newsletters that we produce regularly. And that's it. So very quickly to recap, between Dermot and I, we've given you hopefully enough to meet behind those points. But to recap those points, consider your audience. Have a think about who you're delivering to. Take technology seriously. Don't let it get the better of you. Practice, think ahead, test things. Ensure that you're doing your best to deliver compelling content. You can put feelers out and do research, but make sure the content's right. Try your best to engage with the audience, be it through, like I say, props, but polling, discussion, tag teaming with a co-host.
And then at number 5, we saw how you can, measure your performance with a goal to continually improve your webinars. And then finally, a little bonus there to follow up. Webinars are fantastic resources post-event, and there's a lot you can do with them. So think about that.
Okay, I think
that's all, folks.
Time for a bit of a Q&A.
Time for a bit of Q&A. I say we've scratched off a couple. Well, Dave Marples, I say the recording for anyone that didn't catch it will be shared.
We've got one from Harry Thomas, Harry Thomas here, which is a good question. Why are you using GoToWebinar and not another tool?
Well, you actually picked up on a point, and I almost interrupted earlier. The analytics, the attention score or a tentative rating. So that, one reason why we use GoTo. And as I said when I kind of talked about platforms, it fits our needs. We don't need to share files. We want to share a screen. It offers us the ability to get a number of different accounts. It's tried and tested. It's one of the market leaders. It's robust. They're just some of the many reasons that we use GoTo. So I hope that answers your question, Harry.
It's also very good for keeping the attendees or people who have registered up to date. So you can really customize how many reminders they get. If you don't want to badger them with too many reminders, I think you will have got one from us a day before this one started, and then again an hour before, just to remind people. But that's all fully customizable, as is the the landing page, that holding screen that you would have seen if you started to attend a little bit early. That's all. GoToMeeting is very, very customizable, but there are obviously other platforms that are available. Have we got?
We've got something from Sam, but I'm wondering whether that might be a best offline, because as you've seen, Sam, we've introduced Me Too PowerPoint polling in this webinar, and it was pretty seamless, or hopefully we didn't lose the flow. So that could be one that we'll contact with you afterwards, because embedding links and clicking on links, I don't want to get bogged down in too much detail here. I think we can probably help you offline with what's happening there.
I'll just pick up on the first point in terms of embedding without losing the flow. We can talk about Me Too very very briefly on that. If you have got your poll set up in PowerPoint, much as the way that Dave and I have done today, and they're seamlessly added throughout our presentation, but you do have the ability to open what we call an ad hoc poll just via the dashboard. I could do one now if I wanted to. So actually, if you had that on your iPad or on a computer next to you, you could actually throw in another poll there, and you wouldn't have to change your screen because everybody sees the results actually on their device as well.
And I didn't mean to miss that there's actually a second part to Sam's question. Is there a maximum capacity on how many can reply within a poll? A standard account is 1,500 participants, but we've run meetings with more than that. So get in touch. We've got some coming up in the tens of thousands. So it's a high limit, and get in touch with us.
Sure. Rebecca's asked, what is the top learning you have implemented from early times of running webinars to now? So that's a really good question. I think we shared a couple of bits about that. I think it was mainly around the timing for me. Actually, what we found, and I mentioned that Dave and I used to go off on a bit of tangents. Actually, what we do is we create the content that we're going to deliver, and then we have a couple of rehearsals, and we quite often get other team members in to actually go through it with us. And almost certainly we have to be quite brutal about cutting things out in order to keep to time. What we found is that people actually gave us some feedback afterwards to say that you advertised this as 45 minutes. I think there was one, and we ran over to nearly an hour, and they weren't expecting that, but didn't want to cut off because they wanted to pay attention. So I think my personal learning is
shorter.
And just sticking to your time. Whatever you advertise, make sure you stick to that.
I think for me the best thing was bringing you into webinars.
Thanks, Dave.
No, I'd agree with Dermot there. Keep it to time. It's better to run 3 20-minute webinars than it is to run a 60-minute webinar. Yeah.
And no kids running through the door. That's thanks for that, Brian. Yeah, luckily we're up at the top of the building. Okay, I think we've dried up on questions, and in order to stick to time, we should move along. I think we've got a couple of. Or at least one evaluation poll here that we just want to run through very quickly to practice what we preach. Could you let us know, brutally honest, please, as I mentioned, what you thought of the webinar, and in terms of use of your time? Was it a total waste of your time? or was it extremely valuable, or just somewhere in between? So if you could just respond to that, that'd be great. And once we've closed off this poll, if there's any qualitative feedback you want to give us, ways that we can improve this, please just fire it into the discussion board afterwards.
Just
Okay,
give that
I think we'll just take it there, Dave.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're going to spare our blushes there. Thanks very much, Dave.
You.
Okay, so we just move on. Just a couple of takeaways. What we're going to be doing is sharing this webinar with you on the recording. We're going to provide you with Dave's webinar checklist. I assure you it is thorough. So you may need to take a few stages out of it.
This is the scaled down version as well.
Yeah. And then also, if you haven't got one already, please sign up for your free Me2 account at www.me2.com. Okay, I think that's us, is it, Dave?
That is us. There's no more questions on the board. No, but as we always do, we'll leave the Me2 running for a while. So if you can think of any questions that you forgot to ask, then please do add them on. We'll get back to you later.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Hope
Thank
to
you,
see you on the
everyone.
next one.